Have you ever caught yourself thinking there isn't enough? Not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity? Or do you catch yourself comparing your journey to someone else's, thinking that you aren't enough? These thoughts and patterns are more common than you may realize. Self-reflection is a powerful tool. Taking the time to ask ourselves the hard questions is often where true growth begins. Scarcity wounds are a natural part of our human existence. They are the thought patterns that can tell us we are not enough, that our worth is determined by what others think of us, or that being different creates separation. These beliefs can develop through our own experiences, through the environments we grew up in, and sometimes through patterns that may have been carried through generations. But these wounds are not flaws to fix. They are lessons to understand, integrate, and ultimately transform. And sometimes nature has a way of helping us see these lessons a little more clearly. Trees don't question whether they are enough. They don't compare their growth to the tree beside them. They simply grow, adapt, weather the seasons, and become exactly what they are meant to be. So today, I invite you to slow down with me. Take a breath, set aside judgment, and listen to the wisdom of the trees. The first scarcity wound is the belief that there isn't enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunity, not enough resources. When we carry this belief, we might find ourselves worrying about what we have, what we might lose, or whether there'll be enough for us in the future. But look at the oak. An oak tree doesn't spend its time worrying about whether there will be enough leaves next season. It roots deeply. It grows through its seasons. It gives shade, shelter, and nourishment. And it reminds us that abundance isn't always about having more. Sometimes abundance is simply recognizing what is already around us. The oak says, "Life provides what I need, and abundance exists all around me." The aspen teaches us about comparison. Have you ever looked at someone else's success and wondered why you aren't there yet? Maybe their accomplishments make you question your own. Comparison can make us feel like life is a competition, as though someone else's light somehow makes our light dimmer. But trees don't grow that way. An aspen grove is made up of many individual trees, connected beneath the surface. One tree growing does not take away from another. It adds to the beauty of the entire grove. The aspen says, "Another person's success expands possibilities for everyone." The maple invites us to look at the belief that we have to earn our worth. Maybe we feel valuable when we're productive, when we're accomplishing something, when we're helping someone, when we're doing everything we believe we are supposed to do. But who are we when we stop? Who are we when we rest? The maple doesn't have to prove that it deserves to grow. It simply grows. Through spring, through summer, through autumn, through every season. Maple says, "My worth is inherent and does not need to be proven." The cedar brings us to trust. When we've been hurt, disappointed, or let down, it can feel safer to depend only on ourselves. We may build walls. We may keep people at a distance. We may believe that if we don't need anyone, no one can disappoint us. But protection can sometimes become isolation. Healthy relationships don't require to give up on our boundaries. They invite us to find people who are safe enough to let us in, people who support us, people who nourish us, people who allow us to be ourselves. The cedar says, healthy relationships can be safe, supportive, and nourishing. The pine tree reminds us of what happens when we don't feel safe being ourselves. Maybe we hide parts of who we are. Maybe we try to perfect. Maybe we change ourselves depending on who we're around. And underneath that behavior can be a quiet fear. If people really know me, would they still accept me? But nature doesn't ask a pine tree to become an oak. It doesn't ask the pine to bloom like a dogwood or stand like a redwood. The pine simply grows as a pine, And perhaps we can offer ourselves the same permission to be who we are, to grow in our own way, to belong without becoming someone else. The pine says, I am worthy of love and belonging exactly as I am. Each tree offers a lesson. Does one of them sound familiar to you? Did one of them make you pause? You don't need to judge your answer. Just notice. Sometimes awareness is the first step towards healing. The birch tree invites us to look at the need for approval. How often do we look outside ourselves for reassurance? Did I do this right? Do they like me? Was that good enough? It feels good to receive encouragement from others, but when our sense of value depends entirely on someone else's approval, we can lose touch with our own inner knowing. The birch stands quietly in its own beauty. It doesn't need another tree to tell us that it belongs in the forest. Just like the birch, we don't need approval to know our value. The birch says, my value comes from within. The dogwood brings us the fear of being seen. Sometimes we hold back our gifts because we're afraid of judgment. We might have an idea but not share it, a talent but keep it hidden, a dream but decide it's safer not to try. Because if we shine, someone might see our flaws. But the dogwood doesn't hide its blossoms because some of its branches aren't perfect. It simply blooms. And perhaps our imperfections don't make our light less valuable. They make us human. The dogwood says, my light inspires others to shine. The apple tree teaches us about holding tightly. When we believe there isn't enough, generosity can feel risky. We may protect our time, our knowledge, our possession, our opportunities. We may think, if I give this away, what will be left for me? But abundance isn't only about what we keep. Sometimes abundance grows when we share. An apple tree doesn't eat its own fruit, it gives. And in giving, it becomes part of something larger. The apple tree says, generosity and trust create greater abundance. The redwood reminds us that differences don't have to divide us. We all come from different backgrounds. We hold different beliefs. We see the world through different experiences. And sometimes those differences can feel like walls between us. But look at a forest. A forest isn't made stronger because every tree is the same. Its strength comes from diversity. Different trees, different roots, different ways of growing, all contributing to the same ecosystem. Perhaps humanity is much the same. Our differences don't have to separate us. They can teach us. They can expand us. They can make the whole stronger. The redwood says, diversity strengthens the whole. And finally, we come to the willow. The belief that we are alone, that we have to figure everything out ourselves, that no one understands us, that no one is there. The willow grows beside the water. Its branches reaching towards the earth. It reminds us that connection isn't always obvious. Beneath the soil, trees communicate. Roots connect. Forests share resources. Life is constantly interacting with life. We are part of the same web. Even when we feel alone, we are still connected to something larger than ourselves, to nature, to one another, to the earth beneath us, to a higher power, to the life moving all around us. The willow says, I belong to the web of life. Which tree spoke to you? Now that you've met all 10 trees, which belief feels familiar? Maybe one stood out immediately. Maybe several did. There is no right or wrong answer. This isn't about labeling yourself. It isn't about finding something wrong with you. It's simply about becoming aware of the beliefs and patterns that may be influencing your life. And once we become aware, we have a choice. We can continue carrying an old belief, or we can begin creating a new one. If one of these trees spoke to you, I invite you to continue the journey. On Earth Whispering Healing, you'll find the Scarcity to Abundance workbook, along with resources and pathways designed to help you explore these runes more deeply. You don't have to heal everything at once. You don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes healing begins with something much simpler: awareness. Take what resonates, leave what does not. Listen to what your inner voice is telling you, and allow yourself to grow at your own pace. Like the trees, we each have our own seasons, our own roots, our own way of reaching toward the light. Together, we heal.